when I left the branch after my second term, we had grown the organization from the 30 or 40 people that were there when we started to more than 150. I accepted to run again because they asked me to continue serving them, and I accepted that with humility. We are complementing each other in the space. Our purpose is to actually grow the voice of the oppressed majority in South Africa. It's not to compete amongst each other. We have seen young children walk to school barefoot. We have been able to change the lives of no less than 350 children by giving them those school shoes. I owe my entire growth to the people in Vembe because they supported our idea of a law firm throughout, whereas we are non-vendor. We have set in motion a process that the organization will appreciate with time.
We've always been looking to launch SA Legal Conversations, and I recall when we met the Americans there, you had mentioned, man, start with that thing.
Now it is important that you develop a communications process that is able to be ideas controlled by yourself. You are able to say, what do you want to communicate?
Sure.
I know that social media spaces are just overcrowded now with a lot of things.
Sure.
And maybe we have not developed a systemic way of trying to ensure that if we want to communicate with the legal fraternity, how best do we do that?
Sure.
And what topics do we want to cover? And what kind of expertise do we draw? Such that those conversations are going to be as beneficial to at least a sector of society.
Sure.
Even if they may be accessible by the general populace. But you know that they are raised in a controlled space.
Sure. Sure.
You see what the young Bofu does. He controls the room. He controls the narrative. He controls the conversation. He knows why he needs certain people to come to his call it a show. So you would be achieving that part with doing it in every other space that you find, and it might serve you good to be publicizing or at least marketing yourselves within that media space, because everybody can wake up these days and say, I'm able to provide this.
Sure.
Whereas you're not going to achieve much. So I think I would still support the idea even today. You raised it then, and my answer was yes. I think it was in November last year.
Yes.
In Bolivia, and we're sitting here again 12 months later.
I think we made some strides.
Yeah.
We've grown in leaps. I think with this interview is a perfect opportunity to launch it. However, these videos that we are taking here, I hope you're already recording. There are going to be 3 phases. One, it will be the campaign, where members will be advised to get to know your president.
Yeah.
Because you can't get to speak to everyone and share your views with everyone. For some of us, we got to know your views and mind at the conference. I think in the Mpumalanga
you first met me in the public lecture. I think you were in the public lecture of Limpopo 2 months before I think it was in early September.
Sure.
Limpopo had a general meeting at Nirvana. Is it Nirvana?
Close by. There was, yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. That one where Mercurius was there as well.
Yeah. Then when I was invited to present what we call in Limpopo the chairperson's lecture.
Sure.
And in giving that chairperson's lecture, I think somewhat I don't know, I came with my quasi-revolutionary imagination of things,
Sure.
and people felt I was quite a direct critique of black mediocrity.
Sure.
So I came into the room to suggest that we can actually develop black excellence. We can function without anybody holding a whip behind us.
Sure.
And you would recall I spoke about how best we can develop the judicial capacity of South Africa without necessarily um, creating pockets of discontent amongst the members of society and members of the profession. So post that, then the conversation started about revolutionizing legal education and making it the center
Right.
of our campaign. Thanks. Look, it has been quite a long journey, structured across all the forms of my exposure to the legal profession. One, I was born in 1973 on the 29th of December. That makes me 52 years now. And I hope I sound like a middle-aged man.
Sure.
And I grew up in Limpopo and Gauteng interchangeably at every given time. I'm a fourth-born child at home, first-born son to my parents.
Okay.
I'm married and have 4 children, and those children are all almost semi-adults. My last-born kids are currently at a boarding school playing soccer.
Sure.
So they are 16 going to 17th year. I started school in Limpopo. I studied Sepedi like every other child, and I passed matric in 1993. I took 2 years of looking for work in order to raise money to go to school. In between that process, then I participated in politics from high school. I served as the secretary of the LRC, and then I served subsequently as the vice president of the LRC until I matriculated in 1993. And then fast forward,
A
get
bit
a
of credit
job.
to the high school you went?
Yeah,
Which high school is it?
Regularly High School. It's just here in Mogoto, in
In
ZB.
Moto,
Yeah.
ZB. Sure.
So, interesting enough, I passed in 1993, and then I voted for the first time in 1994. So I have seen every other black government take over. I voted for Nelson Mandela until I voted for Cyril for the second time. So then I worked for 2 years. After that, I decided to go back to school. I then went to the University of Venda. I studied, I registered first for BA Law. And immediately thereafter, I then changed TIC and just continued with that BA Law until I graduated. At the time of my registration was when the discussion about the establishment of the new LLB was starting. The new LLB started as a conversation somewhere in 1995, 96, when the LSSA was being formed and all the other law societies were now starting to accept participation by black practitioners, because prior that there was an exclusionary sense, because the law society as it existed, having been established by the Attorneys Act, was somewhat still very exclusively white.
Sure.
So those councils were excluding black people, and BLA and NADEL and ALS met, agreed that they are going to form the Law Society of South Africa. Having formed the Law Society of South Africa, they then also agreed that in the structuring and or representation in the councils of the regulatory councils as they were, playing dual roles, they then agreed that there was going to be a 50-50 split, 50% black representation and 50% white representation. And that is when BLA started then to be part of the law societies.
Sure.
At the time, then the law school also started. But then my trajectory into the university then propelled me to participate a lot in student politics, back and forth with the police at every given time and all those things, struggles about access. We fought for NFSAS as it then existed. At the time, NFSAS must have been paying for quite a very minuscule number of students. And we fought what we called the battle for access into the institutions. And at the same time, that is when the Minister of Higher Education at the time, Kada Asman, was discussing the rationalization of institutions. I don't know how many in the room would know that the University of Limpopo at some time got to be partially matched with Medunsa.
Yes.
And you would then realize that whole struggle was when some of us were in the SRCs. And we had to fight for the survival of the University of Limpopo and the University of Venda and University of Fort Hare and all those struggles at the time were at the center of our political understanding that the existence of these institutions had to be retained in order to serve the black masses within which they are found. The villages and the villagers that lived around those institutions were direct beneficiaries of those institutions. So when you close them, you are actually then making education inaccessible. You are literally fighting the community's possible education acquisition spaces, and it wouldn't have been correct for us to let it go. Sure. So we fought it with Professor Nkondo, and may his soul rest in peace, being part of those proponents of a view that said these universities must keep on existing. So even that partial merger between the University of Limpopo and Medunsa happened. It more happened on it became quite a very temporary exercise. And I'm just not sure how did it end and when did it end, but I recall it very well because at one point I ran a company that ran SRC elections, and I had to be appointed in the University of Limpopo in Tefluop to go and run the elections of Medunsa. So I went and ran the elections of Medunsa, and they were successful, and our company went home happy that we did something for democracy.
Sure.
Fast forward, the University of Venda, graduate for BA Law, and then graduate for LLB in 2001, and then served articles with Legal Aid South Africa for 2 years. Finished my articles on the 30th of April 2004. And at the time, there was the Law Society of Venda. So each of these homelands had its own law society, with its secretary being the state attorney. So when I finished my candidature, I then somewhat passed my board exams on the same date that my articles got finished.
Okay.
30th April, I get the results on the 29th, and then my articles are finishing on Friday, the 30th of April. And then I prepared my application for admission.
Sure.
Because I attended law school, the 5-week law school, because I served articles for 2 years.
Yes.
So I get admitted on the 13th of May 2004. And immediately thereafter, I then said there are very limited opportunities for law firms to actually hire PAs and so forth, because there were very few law firms, black law firms at the time, but also the white law firms were not necessarily at a stage where they would hire every other PA that qualifies.
Sure.
And having qualified from legal aid, the central focus of legal aid has always been 87% representation of people in the criminal court space.
Sure.
So the 13% of civil court does not or may not have been, at least to my knowledge, exposing a lot of the people who came through legal aid to become professionals were not as much exposed to the civil court practice.
Sure.
And the absence, at least to the greater majority of people in Limpopo, of a high court, except for those in Vembe, also meant that the entire spectra of legal practice had to be so much in the magistrate court. And at the time, the regional court did not have jurisdiction to deal with divorces, to deal with certain matters that had to be attractive to make a healthy living in order for you to be hired as a professional assistant in this space. So then we, on the 6th of June 2004, we then were privileged to decide to open Mvundlela and Associates Inc. And at the time, we just opened it as Mvundlela and Associates Attorneys. For the first 6 months, it had 3 directors, and after 6 months, unfortunately, that directorate somewhat disagreed, and we went our separate ways. But we retained the name Mvundlela and Associates because that is our original name. It's always been like that. From the first day we registered that with the Law Society as it existed in Pretoria, we said we are Mvundlela and Associates. 2 months later, in August, it became Mvundlela, Madala, and Mato Attorneys. And then in February, March 2005, it went back to Mvundlela and Associates.
Madala, the one you introduced me in Venda?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
He was one of the colleagues we started with.
Sure.
So having established the firm in Venda, and I owe my entire growth to the people in Vembe, because they supported our idea of a law firm throughout, whereas we are non-vendor.
Sure.
So you survive in that space, you live in that space, you grow up in that space. It's not a multilingual society. It has always been vendor.
Sure.
And then Giani being Tsonga being nearby. But to a large extent, then you have a law firm that existed in Venda.
I had actually thought you were a vendor when we met.
Yeah, no, I always understand that.
Sure.
It's because I speak Venda very well.
Sure.
So it's very easy for anybody to think
Venda.
Venda. And
Sure.
I always never say no. I say it's okay. They are the loveliest people that I know. They have helped me grow. They have accommodated me in their space. They have welcomed me, and they gave me the space to be me.
Sure.
Without asking me to transition into their cultures and so forth. But
Sure.
Maybe it's because I respected their culture, understood it, learned it, and then appreciated their language, because that is actually the first entry point of every culture. It's the linguistic
aspect,
culture of that community. If you don't understand that, then you are likely to fail. So over the past 22 years we have practiced. We opened the law firm in Polokwane in 2017, 2018, post the High Court being launched in Polokwane. Then we said, let's have presence near both High Courts so that we are able to function. And here we are, 8-9 years later. Our business in Polokwane has taken root. It has taken shape.
Sure.
And we find it peaceful to actually relate with every rural community in Limpopo, with every metropolitan town in South Africa, and we do not limit our potential to grow to anything.
Sure.
And we don't believe that there is a limit to growth. So that's who we are up to now. We pride ourselves with having produced so many young lawyers. I think I've lost count of how many candidates I've actually produced.
Sure.
How many have ran through our hands, and how many are successful in their own spaces.
Sure.
Those that we couldn't keep, they were able to go out and open their own law firms. Some get employed by other law firms. And up to now, I don't recall any of my former candidates' attorneys being struck from the roll. So probably I may have done a better job.
Sure.
Because I have not seen any report of the LPC that says person so and so has been struck from the roll, and I associate myself with the fact that that person has offended the rules. So we have done that. Finally, who am I? I served the BLA in Limpopo for 12 full years. In succession.
Sure.
I entered the BEC as an additional member years back. And the following 2 years, I was then elected as the treasurer of the BLA in Limpopo. And thereafter, I was elected as deputy chairperson of the province. I served in that role for 2 terms. And subsequently, I was then elected as the chairperson, in which I also served for 4 years, for 2 successive terms.
Sure.
And when I walked away, I left a living branch.
Sure. I
always look back now at the growth of Limpopo branch, and I always say, oh, hopefully in my own little way, I've contributed to where it is now. I mean, when I left the branch after my second term, we had grown the organization from the 30 or 40 people that were there when we started to more than 150 members. And now Limpopo prides itself with having 350 members. So you then realize that the trajectory of growth has not in any way been strangled by any of our views, either before or during or post our leadership role in that space. So we have been around. We have tried our best. We have seen our elders ascend to the thrones of any other leadership role in South Africa. And we have contributed to the growth of the BLA.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. And let's then talk about your ascent to the presidency as the national chair. When did that happen?
Yeah, that was a very interesting development. I think the first attempt, and it's correct to put it out there, the first attempt comes quite as a maybe an accident of history, because at first I got nominated to serve as vice president of the BLA. And when we get to conference in the Eastern Cape in East London at the at the International Convention Center there.
Which year was it?
I think it was 2021. Yes, it was 2021. When we arrived there, I was nominated for vice president position, but then BLA being what it is, engagements after engagements at the floor of the conference, and then I get persuaded to contest the presidency of the BLA. I still said to comrades, but you see, if I'm not nominated by my branch, it just doesn't come out right somehow, because then it is always better when your own people are the ones that propels you to the front.
Yes.
But I did not, and I've never done so, look at the members of the BLA in Gauteng as not my people.
Sure.
I've never looked at the KZN branch as not my people. I've always believed that the organization, it's a unitary organization. The people in the Western Cape can identify your ability to lead, and they can actually approach you and nominate you. So I get nominated from the floor, and then I pass the first threshold of 25% of the members present to be able to contest. And we do have a very, very vicious contestation. President Maswazi succeeded, and I think I lost those elections with somewhere 27 to 37 votes. And I said, well, maybe people in the room trust me.
Sure.
That is why from the floor you can then amass so many votes.
Sure.
Because I think I got roughly 126 votes compared to 147 or 150 votes of Comrade Maswazi, somewhere there. I'm not sure about the figures anymore, but the numbers were not so far away from each other.
And that occurred without campaigning?
Without campaigning.
Okay.
Literally without campaign. Like, you arrive at conference, you don't even expect to actually stand as president, and there you are. Somebody says, listen, maybe it's your turn to do these things. And I said, yes and no, but if people are saying serve, you say, oh, I'm a servant. I should be able to accept.
Sure.
When comrade says, we trust you with the organization. And we accepted that defeat very, very professionally and quickly, and moved on. And we supported that NEC that was elected. We did our best at every given opportunity to make sure that, one, we never fail to attend meetings.
Yeah.
And when we are in those meetings, we are never destructive. When we are in those meetings, we guide where we can. And if you are defeated on any idea, you accept that the role of the majority is to take these decisions, and you move on.
Sure.
So we then get to a point where, in my subjective assessment, I then said, is the BLA as visible as it should be? And I said, well, it's doubtful. I asked, is it as asserted and assertive as it ought to be? I wasn't very sure of the answer. And I thought it is wise to actually go out there and say to members, give us an opportunity to realign, re-envision, and reassert the BLA. And we then decided to come with that as a slogan. In fact, before that, I recall very well that I was called by the BEC to a meeting in March, and they said to me, Chair, as they used to call me then, would you be willing to raise your hand to be a presidential candidate of the BLA? I said, willing is one thing, but will you be willing to actually allow me to lead the organization? Because you are the members of the organization. It's not about what I like. It's not what I want. It's what you feel I could offer to the organization and its membership. So after that meeting, then the decision was made by the BEC, and then they said to me, look, we must run a campaign and we are going to actually support you. I said, I welcome the decision. I'm a servant. I will go out of my way to do what the organization can benefit out of. It's free work. The BLA work, it's free work.
So you don't get paid?
You don't get paid. You don't get there and expect any patrimonial benefit.
Sure.
You literally give into the organization more than people see. Because you give your time, you give energy, you are always out of office. If you are in office, you are actually divided between client work and the BLA work, but you actually make sure that none of the two suffers. It requires you to have a very balancing act. But I must tell you now that I've been very privileged to always have an opportunity to recruit people who shares the dream, because our staff composition are people that get to the office and love their work. So it makes it easier for me to be able to say, even when I'm in the office, I do the work that they can't do. I become a support system for all of them, and I become at least their go-to person when they don't understand or when they are uncertain about what is it that needs to be done. But in the generality of terms, I think that the greatest privilege I've had is to work with people in the room who appreciates who the BLA is and why we must keep on playing the role that we are playing as members of the BLA. And that gives me the space and time to actually serve. And I'm grateful that the staff members that I have in the office have carried the weight. Personally, then obviously that staff does not go to my house. They don't become husbands to my wife. Neither do they become the fathers to my children. So you always have to make sure that every little time you get, you are able to spend it qualitatively with them, this family that you have. And as the breadwinner at home, at my mom's home, at my family home, you then have to also divide yourself between this nuclear family and between this and this extended family. So you must be able to have this balancing act all the time. You must be accessible. People must know that if they want to reach you, they will reach you without hindrance, whether I'm in the office, I'm at court. I believe that I've created around myself an aura of accessibility. Nobody can say, we looked for you and you came across as somebody who is not reachable. Those that did, I believe they didn't talk to me. If they did talk to me, they would be the first to accept quickly that, well, if we wanted to access him, he did get to be accessible. So that has been the journey up to now, to say, to what extent are you able to dedicate yourself to the legal profession, to transformation, and still remain disciplined so much that you are able to account to your clients at all times, take your clients into confidence that their work is done, and still be able to account to the regulator as and when they need you to account, and even participate in regulatory issues of sitting in the LPC sometimes, help them in taking decisions about errant practitioners or those that are being accused of doing something. Some of them, they get acquitted for the fact that they didn't go wrong. They were just being falsely accused and so. So you participate in all these things because you understand where the profession must go.
Sure.
And that's how I balance. Well, I've been a president for one term, and I say it's my 20 months of baptism of fire, because I got elected on the 10th of February 2024 in Sun City.
Sure.
And 4 months later, we had to host a general meeting in Mpumalanga, and you ask yourself, what work could you have done in 4 months?
Sure.
We ended up for the first time deciding to have a meeting of the BLA in June, when ordinarily it is held end of May. So we then said, no, let's give ourselves at least a buffer of 2 weeks. End of May, then first weekend of June. And we pulled it.
It was a beautiful event.
We had a gala dinner.
Sure.
That was well attended by members, that members appreciated and participated.
Yeah.
It is so humbling every time that you call a meeting and people take their last hard-earned income to travel to that meeting without expectation.
Sure.
And the only thing they would appreciate is for you to respect them in the hall, to actually run a meeting that they would appreciate, whose outcomes they would actually make reference to, and come out more empowered as members of the organization. So we did that, and we had our first general meeting there. Second meeting was the AGM in Polokwane in Bolivia. It went well from where I'm sitting. I say to people it went well because it achieved the purpose for which it was called. Yes, it didn't have credentials. Yes, it could have been better managed.
Sure.
Yes, we may have not presented the credentials at the time, because non-elective meetings are somewhat very dicey to manage, because the interest that people comes with to those kind of meetings may as well be different. And that is something that we said as the NEC, lesson learned. We are not going to go to any meeting and believe that because it's not elective, it must not have the capacity to take decisions.
Sure.
It's quite regrettable that meeting did not have the capacity it ought to have had.
Sure.
To take the decisions that it was supposed to take. And then the third meeting in Gqeberha, I think we improved our reasoning about how best we can organize it. Our experience then was starting to show. And the meeting in November could not have been a reflection necessarily of how the BLA should actually behave itself in a room. It may not have been necessarily what we anticipated or at least hoped to get out with. But it was something that became more a test of character. And I call it a test of character because that meeting could have become anything. It could have had the potential to implode the organization.
Sure.
It could have driven the organization and its members to a point where the wedge between the ordinary members and its National Executive Committee could have widened.
Sure.
But instead, what I learned out of it was that members in the room appreciated the respect the NEC gave to them, and the NEC understood the frustration of members. And that, for me, became the lessons that we all left the room with.
Sure.
And in Eastern Cape, at Tabeja, it became much better managed.
Sure.
And everybody left the room now knowing exactly what they expect out of the NEC and what the NEC expected out of the membership. So this coming meeting gives us an opportunity then to say, as we step out of office, history should be able to judge us to have been able to retain the aura of what the BLA is supposed to be. The aura of the lawyers that we produce as Black practitioners in general.
Sure.
And that, for me, is a take home, because I think that this outgoing NEC has been able to stick it out despite all the challenges, both financially and otherwise. This NEC has been able to carry its weight and made sure that the organization reaches where it is now.
Sure.
We achieved two things. And I'll tell you now that we did something that we knew very well that members may not be happy about. And at least we had the levels of mental preparedness to actually then handle the entire process as it unfolded. I'll tell you that we were the first NEC to be addressed by the CEO of the Road Accident Fund, even before Collins.
Sure.
But the reason we called Collins was because members of the BLA in all the other small corners were complaining about how he was running the RAF. They were also concerned about how he was speaking so badly about the lawyers out there. And it is not a secret that we met with the RAF for the first time. I think it was on the 24th of June. We went to them and they agreed to a stakeholder engagement. We sat in the room and we said, let's lay down the rules. One, we cannot have a state entity actually bashing the profession every day for the mistakes of the few. And we drove that narrative into the RAF until Collins opened up to a discussion about it. And he, for those that listened to him post Bolivia, they would be the first to accept that he had actually changed tune about how he viewed the profession. And that is the one thing that we achieved by bringing him there. But secondly, we then gave our members an opportunity to confront him then with whatever that they felt was the problem in the RAF. And those that were in the room did confront him by asking him questions. He answered. he was a guest speaker. He wasn't there to draft policy.
Sure.
So to the extent that he engaged with us in a peaceful environment, in actually engaged with more than just the 8 people in the NEC.
Sure.
To us, it was good for the profession and good for our members to actually then confront this person that they've been complaining about to us. We said, and I can still say it now, and I would say it every day, when you are having a problem with somebody, the best place to solve that problem is to confront them. Not to scream from somewhere else.
Sure.
Is to sit them down in a room and say, let's talk about this thing.
Mm-hmm.
When you get out of that space, when you were heard, you were not screaming. Mm-hmm. You were not throwing stones. You were not erratic in your approach. Mm-hmm. You sat down and spoke about these issues. Mm-hmm. And whether you agreed or disagreed,
sure,
but at least you are sure about one thing. You got audience.
Sure.
And you had the person you're talking to. Mm-hmm. Because that gives you an opportunity to either make them see your point, mm-hmm, or you see theirs. Mm-hmm. And that is the one thing that invitation of Collins achieved, that as this NEC, we do not regret. We don't even imagine it being wrong. Mm-hmm. And we don't think that it was a bad idea.
Sure.
Yes, it may have ruffled feathers. It may have made other comrades in the BLA to even consider resigning from the BLA. Mm-hmm. But the BLA we lead and the BLA we belong to, mm-hmm, cannot be afraid of confrontation.
Sure.
Because that BLA, if that BLA is to be afraid of confrontation, sure, with the person you think you are disagreeing with, mm-hmm, then that BLA will be existing somewhere in the desert.
Sure.
And we cannot have that kind of a BLA. The BLA we need to have in South Africa and everywhere else, mm-hmm, must be the BLA that is not scared of engagement. And you cannot lead this organization and believe that members must trust you with leading them, mm-hmm, and they send you into a boardroom, but they don't want you to discuss in a stadium. Mm-hmm. It can't be correct. That is that for me is contradiction.
Okay. Just 2 more questions about the RAF, and then we close the RAF ticket. I wanted to just digress further a bit on the topic of the RAF. We are sitting here today with articles floating about from the parliament saying that the RAF admits that it was wrong to discourage the public from claiming through lawyers. It's them admitting now. Yeah. And we've had a CEO who truly bashed attorneys.
Look, I'll tell you that I have an opportunity to go and meet with Scopa, so it may be somewhat presumptuous of me to profile an opinion that sticks out on the basis of one statement.
Sure.
The RAF admits a lot of things actually before Scopa, and it tells you that perhaps the board that was in office at the time just didn't understand its bigger role within the act, or if the board understood, how best could it have managed the entire process of the RAF being an entity that must benefit the claimants more than anything. The issue of the members of the public claiming on their own did not start now. Didn't start with Collins being CEO. It is something that was started somewhere after 2005, where members of the public were encouraged actually to go and lodge their own claims. And that is why currently we're sitting with a lot of members of the public's RAF claims sitting undecided in the RAF, and a lot of them only now going to attorneys, and attorneys going to court to argue that the matters that were lodged with the RAF cannot be dealt with in line with Prescription Act. And it's a very gray area, which courts in some instances agrees, in some instances dismisses. And then you find that you have lost a possible benefit that you would have received had you gone there with a lawyer in the first instance.
Sure.
It may have been a mechanism to save cost, granted, because then when that member of the public is there and they offer him or her some 400,000, and then he gets or she gets that 400,000 and goes home without paying legal costs of their own to defend the matter or of the plaintiff.
Sure.
But the problem becomes what happens when there is non-compliance with the act by them, and that member of the public doesn't have the opportunity to draft summons because of lack of knowledge and or obvious reasons, lack of legal expertise. So it is depriving members of the public their right to then be able to pursue their rights in cases where the fund would have decided not to comply with the law. It would have been a very misguided decision to do so. And I call it misguided because I'm not sure what gave rise to it. I don't work for the RAF. So I think that they could have done better by not at least misleading the public as they've come to accept now.
Sure.
That the decision was wrong. They shouldn't have misguided the public. So I hope that they improve, one, their communication, but two, their policy frameworks within the context of improving the service. But lastly, and I say this in one affidavit that I've submitted to SCOP already, that I think that the RAF must actually develop its human capital. Because for as long as it has less claim handlers, but massive claims, these few people are not going to be able to handle the number of claims. So there is still going to be a lot of work that ends up in court, whether there is mediation rules or there is no mediation rules. So the mediation opportunity just gives them a second bite on dealing with what they could have dealt with without the matter being in court. Therefore, what is required is for them to have adequate staffing so that they are able to have capacity to handle the floodgate of claims that they are receiving. And without that, they can say anything they want. They are not going to. They remember, they can't in any way automate the response. Because it is based on multiple requirements. So you need a human being to go through each of those requirements to check whether there is compliance. Now, when you have less human beings, but you have massive claims, you are obviously not going to have capacity for people to work 23 hours a day. Even if they did, they most probably would make more mistakes than you want them to. I think it's another statement that ordinarily it's made, I don't think, without proper consideration, because the forms you're talking about, and without referring to what McIntosh is saying about a form that they themselves accept that they can't complete without a lawyer. But I'm talking about, let's talk about your ordinary person on the street.
Sure.
Your ordinary person on the street. I'm not worried about how well educated they are and all those things. I'm talking about anyone with simple ability to read English.
Sure.
Because the forms are produced in English. I can bet my last penny that that person would not know where to get each of the requirements that are on the form, let alone to complete it.
Sure.
Because for you to go and lodge, you need to attach every other document that they say attach there.
Sure.
How many members of the public knows where to get the accident report?
Not many.
How many members of the public knows where to and the procedure to go and get their medical records at hospitals? And having obtained those medical records, how many of them would know how to read them in order to be able to complete the information to get to qualify their claim? And then how many of them knows which doctor to go to in order for them to get the kind of report that they must get? Now, you can't be talking about it without that consideration.
Sure.
It's like you saying a member of the public who has a headache must know where to buy Disprin.
Sure.
It's fine. You can go buy Disprin, but believe you me, a person who suffers from migraine is not going to get healed by a Disprin. That person needs a doctor to be attended to.
Sure.
So you must be able to be measured when you talk about society in South Africa, because the claim process for me includes society in South Africa. So if we talk about it in an unmeasured manner, creating falsehoods or impressions that suggest that this is a simplistic activity,
sure,
whereas even those that are currently employed in the RAF, upon receipt of these claims, they are unable to respond to them within a turnaround time of 120 days or 60 days.
Sure.
Then it means that we are willing to mislead the public as much as possible. And it can be correct.
It can be.
I accepted to run again because they asked me to continue serving them.
Sure.
And I accepted that with humility.
And also, do you think you have achieved your milestones and goals you've set for yourself as the NEC?
Look, we have set in motion a process that the organization will appreciate with time, we believe. One of the key things we said was, one, we are going to make the BLA visible. Two, we are going to re-image and repurpose the BLA for what it was meant to do from the onset. And we have achieved that. I think members will be the first group to accept that the BLA's image has gained traction. It may not be too far from the previous, but it is more in the eyes of the public more than it may have been before. And we have achieved that. Have we reasserted the BLA? Yes, we did. The BLA has litigated in matters of importance. We have taken the LPC on when we needed to, together with Nadel and Aft and others. We have taken position to litigate within the context of the legal sector code. We have taken decisions to go to the Constitutional Court and make our point heard. We have represented and projected the image of the organization in every public space where we were invited by either the CJ or the SCA president, and we have represented the organization with vigor because we believed that we should reassert the organization. So having done that first phase, we have also taken a decision to, and this is extremely important for me, because we said we must start planning for the organization and stop planning for its leadership.
Okay.
And this we mean, and this is a dream we shared as the NEC members, has always been that you cannot, when you are changing leadership every 2 years, believe that you are going to have a long-term vision of an organization.
Sure.
Without a proper strat plan, without a proper long-term planning, out of which you are going to evaluate the performance of the leadership. Because for you to evaluate my performance, you must set around KPIs out of which you are going to say, but these are the things you were supposed to achieve. Did you achieve them? What were the obstacles that made you to achieve them? If we are to replace you and put in new people in office, do they understand that these are the KPIs? It's not about them getting in, have a popularity contest of ideas, and then spiral themselves to the front. And then when they are there, they realize, oh, it doesn't look like the way we saw it when we were outside. And we think, and I think that with that strat plan, 8 to 10 year strat plan that documents a document of 39 pages that we attached to the Kabeja report, which I still plan that we should be able to attach it to the coming meeting for its approval. We will be doing the BLA the best service.
Sure.
Because we will be helping it plan for the future, not for today.
Are you then saying you really are considering having performance reviews of NEC deployees and committee heads?
It will be easier to do that because one additional point about this strat plan thing and long-term vision is that you then are going to have branch leadership and NEC leadership speaking from the same document. You can't have branches singing different hymns and the NEC singing another hymn. And then you call these people a church. In all likelihoods, each one of them may as well have a pastor and preach to them at whatever level, in whatever form. And the message will not be coherent.
Sure.
And the likelihood of society not taking you serious grows. But the mistrust will be the front runner, because then society will ask, well, in Limpopo they do what? In Northern Cape they do what? Or in whatever province they don't even exist.
Sure.
Why should we listen to them? Who do they represent?
Sure.
Now, when you have a coherent message, society and everybody that participates respects the fact that all of you understand your organization the same way, and you would want it to perform the same way. Look, if elected, you start there with that long-term vision.
Sure.
You put people in one room. We developed that long-term vision, by the way, with the branches. The gap was the fact that it had not been adopted yet so the branches would not necessarily have been compelled to wake up and find resonance with taking each of its principles and run with it. We have dedicated ourselves to these 3 basic things. One is to develop an administrative wing of the organization that is going to coherently implement the decisions of each of the structures, be they branch or national.
Mm-hmm.
And two, we said, let us develop legal education spaces that are going to teach our members about everything we do. And I think Comrade Chidi's ideas comes very, very useful in that space, because he understands the legal education space very well. And he has developed documents that, if properly considered and well received and dealt with to the core, the BLA will become a better organization, because in addition to the Legal Education Center, the BLA will improve its service offering to its members, in addition to the LEC. But what even benefits the BLA members more is the fact that in running the webinars, Comrade Chidi has been able to give members of the organization an opportunity to learn out of every expert we were able to recruit. And lastly, we have said, in teaching our members a lot more about every other legal aspect that they have to understand, and every other ethical code that they must be able to appreciate, we are creating an opportunity to produce more judges, more better educated judges, more better abled judges. And because judges are sourced from ourselves, we can only produce them when we educate each other and others much better. And I think that is what we must be able to achieve. But the most greatest benefit of that education becomes empowerment. An empowered lawyer is somebody with proper legal knowledge. It doesn't start with you getting work. It doesn't. It can't start with you
getting your articles,
getting appointed to be on a panel.
Oh yes.
It starts with you having the necessary knowledge, and out of that knowledge being able to then say, that is the skill I'm going to sell. Remember, lawyers don't produce potatoes. They are not farmers. So the best thing they sell is their skills, is their knowledge, their technical know-how. So once you are more educated, you are more inclined to give your client a good advice. And this good advice is going to attract this client to stick with you. And then you are going to be able to say to anybody that has to establish a panel, I have a specific skill that you need. And as a result, I deserve appointment. So I believe that those are the things that we have put in motion, and needs to be pushed very rigorously now, without any reason to be sorry or to be apologetic. We need to be able to drive a narrative that says, government, you are going to empower the black female, the young girl who just became an admitted practitioner, the middle-aged man who left one career for the other, and everybody else in between, in order for them to economically improve their opportunity to generate income. Because you are not going to generate income when you are less skilled, less knowledgeable, and less educated. You are not going to attract anybody to give you any opportunity.
I'm very much interested in transformation and equity and legal education and professional development.
Thanks. Look, the transformation agenda, it's a long-term goal. One way or another, it will spiral we will have to move it one brick at a time, and I think we have started, and we are having a good audience, because I think the Ministry of Justice does listen to our views, and considers them where necessary. I think business is going to start opening up, particularly because together with other like-minded organizations, we do confront them every now and then, the banks and so forth, together with other like-minded organizations. The discipline in the BLA must get to a point where it's a non-negotiable. The BLA, it's a lawyers' organization. The fact that you are a lawyer, you are admitted, or you are a candidate legal practitioner, must tell you that there is a particular level of ethical behavior that society already expects of you. Mm-hmm. So when we drop below that level, it might as well be a reflection that we need to repurpose ourselves and get back to that understanding of why we are members of the BLA in the first instance. And if we can get there, we would achieve something. Two, I think once the new constitution is adopted, mm-hmm. it brings with itself an opportunity for the organization to self-cleanse. And by self-cleansing, I mean it gives you certain provisions that are discipline-oriented. Therefore, people would know that it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of approach. You are not going to behave in a particular manner and there will be no consequences for it. Sure. Because we must be able to, as much as we are a voluntary association, but when you volunteer to join others, you must be willing to behave as they expect you to. Mm-hmm. And therefore, we can't afford anarchy. We can't afford ill discipline. We can't afford to find ourselves in a room where disorder becomes the order of the day. Mm-hmm. It can't make sense to anybody in their right mind. And it is not necessarily the loudest voice in the room that makes sense. And I think that is one of the drivers we must actually put in motion. In the BLA, it must be that our ability to listen to each other will create the ability to respond to each other. It can't be the other way around. Mm-hmm. You cannot be listening to each other to respond. Mm-hmm. You must be listening to each other first to understand. Now, for some time, you may find that we are sitting in a meeting where there is a very interesting debate where people think that being given an opportunity to speak and repeat each other's versions in different English means that meeting is very progressive. Mm-hmm. It may not. And that's why I'm saying one of the key things that we must teach ourselves as members of the BLA is the ability to listen. And the need to be patient with each other. Mm-hmm. Because impatience breeds anarchy. Sure. When I can't be patient with another person's view, mm-hmm. I reject it without even hearing it. Whereas it may have been actually the most progressive one. Sure. So the ability to do so has taught us to maintain the level of discipline we have been able to achieve now. There may have been ill discipline in the sense that some members may have felt they don't agree with a decision, they are going to go against it anyway, simply because you can't do anything to them. Mm-hmm. That is ill discipline, and it must be called for what it is. Mm-hmm. But it requires a process flow to manage it. Mm-hmm. Because as much as you are not going to stop ambition, mm-hmm. you must be the first to accept that you are not going to stop anybody believing that they are better than the other. So we must be able to say, in managing ambition, we must also manage expectations of individuals, of the organization. So I think that's one thing that I'm still willing to drive and to stick to, no matter how complicated or how disorganized that organized chaos looks like.
Organized chaos, you say.
In the hall. So it's something that I believe can be done.
How will you then balance being a reformer who demands transformation and with being a unifier who seeks inclusion, especially going in the next AGM?
Those terms are not opposite each other.
Okay.
Those terms are complementary. You see, one of the key requirements for transformation is inclusion.
Yes.
That is one of the simplest key requirements.
Within the organization?
For transformation, yes, it's inclusion. For you to believe that the legal profession is better transformed, you must be able to say all members in the legal profession are having equal opportunity and have a near equal ability to do the basics the simpler way. Now, that for me speaks to inclusion. It says you have an education system in the legal fraternity that gives all people equal opportunity to learn and to grapple with similar problems. And that speaks to your inclusion. Reform, you must be able to, and I know how controversial this is going to sound. You see, South Africa has transitioned from apartheid, generally and specifically only from a point of the Constitution, because the Constitution is respected and it's accepted by everybody in the country. But the implementation of the clauses of the Constitution is the biggest elephant in the room, because others believes that you can't talk about that transformation because in order to give a black person an opportunity, you must deprive a white person opportunity. And we forget that, by the way, you cannot have the minority leading the majority. Ordinarily, the majority must lead the minority.
Yeah.
The principles that regulate majorities' perception of what democracy should be, in my view, must be able to be the guiding principles in the room, without limiting the rights of the minority or taking it away. You must be able to say what limits the right of a minority is the application of the majoritarian principle. That is what limits it naturally.
Sure.
What gives rise to the minority right is the fact that the majority must never decide to kill the minority.
Sure.
Therefore, your reform must be able to say, what am I reforming? Which laws in South Africa needs to be reformed in order for me to achieve the goals of transformation, of being able to be inclusive. But you can't also talk about that inclusivity without talking about unity.
Sure.
But unity must be also unity of purpose, not unity for the sake of it. If we are united with the view to achieve one purpose, and we are united by this purpose, we are not going to see color. We are going to see that purpose being the driver of why we are doing what we are doing. So that's why I'm saying those concepts, as they see it, they are not mutually exclusive. to each other.
Sure.
They are actually aimed at achieving one goal. And that goal must be the transformation of society, transformation of the economy, transformation of our at least socio-economic beliefs about South Africa, and they must be aimed at benefiting at least the previously historically disadvantaged masses, because they are the ones who are suffering the brunt of that exclusion.
Sure.
They are excluded from the economy, not because they are incapable, but because they are not adequately educated to participate.
Sure.
So when you have inadequate education and it is continuing to produce an inadequately educated person.
I'd like for us to cover the issue of transformation and equity. I have just a few questions.
Yeah.
One, how satisfied are you with the transformation progress across the profession? What steps has the BLA taken to tackle biased briefing patterns? We know in our previous meetings the issue of and biased briefing patterns with the state attorney has been raised.
Yeah.
And has the government or the state attorney demonstrated true commitment to transformation, or must the BLA become more assertive? And before you could answer all of these questions, what does genuine transformation mean to you within the profession?
Yeah, within the profession, I'll tell you now, transformation is not, and I'll tell you what it's not, at least so that you understand it from where I sit. Many people would say to you that to achieve a transformed legal profession, you must actually have more women join the profession, more black people join the profession, and so forth and so forth. That is just but one leg of it, access. The second leg of it is economic access. The third leg of it is the developmental nature of producing this particular lawyer that you are talking about. And finally, the state's attorney's unbiased briefing patterns. The narrative that has started now is that, and maybe that is the scary narrative, is that for as long as statistically the state attorney can prove to Parliament that we have briefed and spent massive amounts of money on black practitioners. It's a statistic. They go to Parliament and say, we have briefed people for more than 3-4 billion rand. Granted. The question is, on how many practitioners did they spend that money? You may find that the new normal of exclusion is repeat briefing patterns. And it goes to constitute biased briefings.
Sure.
Because it says we have 4 billion rand, we have briefed Mvundlela 45 times in a year, we have paid him 1.2 billion.
Sure.
We are going to Parliament to tell Parliament that we are briefing blacks. But we have actually only briefed one person.
Sure.
That cannot be the nature of transformation we are talking about. The nature of transformation we are talking about is that there must be a geographic spread of briefing patterns. There must be an adequate number of people that are given those briefs. There must be a classified way of actually briefing those people. Classified in the sense that you don't have to have to have a one-size-fits-all kind of approach in briefing people as the state attorney.
Sure.
For a criminal case of reckless driving by a police officer, you don't need an SC.
Sure.
You actually just need a young person who has the right to appear in court.
In the regional court, you're done.
For a complex matter that sits in the constitutional court, you don't need a Dalimpofu.
Sure.
Always. Even if you take a Dalimpofu, you must be able to say how many other 6 people is he able to go there and teach what he teaches every time.
Yes.
And we have seen those kind of matters go to court, and you see a large contingent of lawyers, but you always realize that you may be sitting with repeat briefs.
Sure.
And when you are sitting with repeat briefs, then you are not giving more people an opportunity. And our call is give more people opportunity in order for them to learn, in order for them to improve their skills, and in order for them to have a reasonable income. One of the problems I said at the beginning when you asked about transformation now is the fact that there is a massive production of generally black practitioners, prospective practitioners at it. Law schools are producing so many prospective candidate attorneys. They don't have spaces to be taken in. And that speaks to the very same transformation agenda. Because your statistic from one end to the other doesn't become a continuous conduit. It gets staggered. One gets to be produced by a university. She's black. She doesn't have money to go to law school. Then she stays at home, or she does masters.
Sure.
Honors, whatever. The other one gets to go to law school, gets out of law school, doesn't get articles. Then she gets economically disempowered. The other one gets into articles, but after articles doesn't get absorbed by that law firm. She gets desperate, or he gets desperate, then doesn't get to get the opportunity for which they went to school. The other one goes into practice and opens a law firm, but doesn't survive 3 years. So you have every other stage being met by difficult challenges for as long as the briefing patterns doesn't change, and we do not deliberately say we are going to put these people in law firms and give those law firms actual briefs and stop briefing only advocates and brief many attorneys to brief those advocates.
Sure.
In order to develop the financial capacity for these law firms to be able to sustain the young practitioners that are coming in for education purposes. Because when they are there practicing, they will be learning.
Sure.
And they would become better with time. So when you look at those questions that you talk about, you can't talk about one without actually touching the other. And the reality is, for us to say the legal profession is truly transformed, we must be able to say, does every lawyer who gets into practice stays in practice because there is adequate income levels? I don't think the market is saturated.
All right.
I don't subscribe to that notion. I actually think there are fewer lawyers in South Africa than we need actually.
Sure.
Because every now and then you may find that you are looking for an advocate you are not getting because all of them are briefed.
Sure.
or some of them are not available for one reason or another. Two, you still have the greatest number of our society members not able to access a lawyer because of one, poverty levels and all those other things. But even the mere fact of local availability. When you don't look at big towns, lawyers are concentrated mainly in big centers where they know that at least the metropolitan there is economic activity.
Yeah.
So as matter stands in South Africa, the number of attorneys on the roll are not more than 50,000, and I'm saying not more because I know that they are less than 50,000, and you are sitting you are talking about a 62 million community. So it's not saturation. I think the reason why a lot of young people don't spend that 3 years is because of lack of economic opportunities. Simple lack of economic opportunities. The economy itself is not supporting the growth of lawyers.
Tell me about it.
It's not. The economy of lawyers itself is based on the reality that if you are not briefed or you are not getting an instruction from an able client, you are going to have to close because you won't have money to pay rent.
Sure.
You won't have money to buy stationery. You won't have money to hire a secretary, let alone a partner or anybody who's going to be there when you are busy chasing bail in court.
Sure.
And so all those things are dependent on whether there is economic support. And economic support for me takes the shape that I'm talking about. The state is the biggest litigator. And the truth is they are sitting with a huge number of litigious matters that they are unable to litigate. That is why every now and then you may have default judgment taken, you may have somebody being barred, or you may have them asking for a postponement at every given opportunity. The reason is simple. Capacity and lack of preparedness. You can't prepare 30 files per day.
Sure.
One is Minister of Police, one is Minister of Health, one is a Department of Public Works. All these matters requires you to diversify your immediate knowledge of what is the course of action. And then you are sitting with all of them on one table.
And what has been the outcome of your deliberations with the state attorney thus far?
We have had a conversation with the minister, and she's actually working hard to ensure that we change that narrative. One. The other challenge we are sitting with is the fact that the state over the past year or so have been unable to appoint a Solicitor General.
Sure.
And without the Solicitor General being the supervisor of the state attorneys, we have a problem of entry points. You have an inconsistent engagement. Every other acting person who goes to act as the Solicitor General have their own imagination of what should happen. You have a meeting with him or her. 3 months later, that person is no longer there. That conversation has left with that person.
Sure.
So you have an inconsistent way of engagement, and it's not benefiting the profession. So we urge the ministry and the minister in particular to fast track the appointment of the Solicitor General.
Sure.
Because once that person is appointed, even if it's on a 5-year term, we know that at least there will be follow-ups. There will be a reason to adopt a particular stance because you will be knowing that you can push hard for its implementation. But as of now, it's a fluid environment. Every other time you have a different conversation and people show willingness.
However,
before they even implement their acting period
it's over.
It's over and they leave the space.
Sure.
So,
outside of the challenges that you've mentioned, does the government demonstrate true commitment to transformation, or must the BLA become more assertive, especially in the coming 2 years?
it's a bit of both. Actually, the BLA must just take a rigorous stance that demands of government at every given opportunity to ensure that lawyers are appointed, and black lawyers generally, and Africans in particular. You see, the BLA's inability to litigate because of financial constraints, it's another thing that I hope to address, time permitting, if elected, because there will be times when you realize that the state attorney does not get out of its comfort zone to make sure that black people are appointed. What they tell us is the fact that they are a creature of instructions. And as a creature of instructions, there are relevant departments that you are suing are the ones that determines for them whether they are appointing or not appointing. This takes me back to the question you are asking: is government actually doing anything to transform? Maybe we are talking to a wrong approach. Maybe the BLA must, in its approach, adopt a stance that says we are going to demand that each department must be able to prove how often did it actually instruct the state attorney to instruct lawyers.
Sure.
And I'll tell you how, because if you think about it and you consider that perhaps it's true that the state attorney, as a creature of instructions, have to do what the client wants. Granted, let's accept that as a practitioner, I also have to do what my client wants. But the entirety of government litigates, and they are the ones that give state attorney instructions to do anything.
Sure.
So who is the BLA conversing with? Are we not dedicating our energy to a wrong entity?
Perhaps.
And I'm just thinking aloud that maybe we are just dedicating our energy to a wrong entity.
Sure.
We must actually then say to the president and his cabinet, to what extent is your intention to transform the legal profession cascading down through your departments to the state attorney? Because that's where maybe everything turns. The state attorney becomes just a mouthpiece of all these departments.
Sure.
In their briefing patterns.
At the end of the
so
day.
maybe that should be the focus.
Sure.
And thinking about it now, I think it actually would make better sense to actually confront the relevant departments through the relevant channels of cabinet, more than just approaching and confronting the state attorney, because the state attorney is a conduit, like we are conduits as lawyers. Our job is to carry clients' instructions. We don't have cases without clients.
Sure.
The state attorney doesn't have cases without clients.
Sure.
So are we not barking the wrong tree?
To a degree, yes. Sure.
So that's where we are, and I think that is something that maybe the BLA must take rigorously, to say we are tired of actually hearing a narrative that says state attorney constantly says we are a conduit.
Sure.
We are a carrier of instructions. What are all these other departments doing? And maybe that is the conversation I need to start with the Minister of Justice, the soonest, to say, how do you discuss this thing with your with your counterparts in other departments.
Sure.
Because without that discussion, we're doomed.
I recall in one of our meetings in Thohoyandou, we had invited the JP in Limpopo, and he was speaking about Swart Khafar. Black practitioners are facing a lot of backlash. And this Swart Khafar, it's not starting now. It applies mainly on black professionals. Now, does the BLA intend to have, or does it have intentions to have a machinery that actually sells the good work that we do as legal practitioners? I've always said that there are many really good lawyers and who are ethical, but that message is not put out there. What you see in the media is generally negative about lawyers. Whenever you mention that you're a lawyer, someone thinks you're a sleazy someone, right?
Thief.
Sure. Does the BLA have intention to build a machinery that will perhaps sell, especially black practitioners, out in the public? And most importantly, especially following the Eastern Cape meeting, is there a plan for the BLA for a digital media communications hub? And how can digitization define BLA's identity moving forward?
It's going to depend entirely on what is it that you call digitization and who has to access that digitized form.
Sure.
It's going to depend entirely on that, one. But two, I think the BLA on a simplistic approach can do well by ensuring that we partner with certain, and I'll call them institutions, for lack of a better description, in order to profile the work of these lawyers. You see, the work of lawyers has not been profiled enough for society to actually understand how important it is to have a lawyer. A simple thing. And we must be able to say, through that kind of relationship, we are willing to not advertise as regulated by the LPC, that you can't be advertising in a manner that suggests you are the best.
Sure.
But I've seen adverts on TV which actually speaks to the work of certain law firms.
Sure.
And nobody frowns upon it, because it's a very balanced advert that just says, give us your work, we will be very accurate in how we do it, we will be timeous, we will be economical about your money, and above all, we will be cutthroat about our understanding of the law. So, one, those are the kind of adverts that you would wish our members could actually start looking at. Billboards are fine, but too many people passes billboards and don't read them.
Sure.
Unless they're electronic ones that just shines and then you see the need to look at it because it's switching on lights. That is true. But lastly, this work profiling of lawyers can also only work if people are going to use the current forms of social media spaces constructively. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. I read a lot about people posting useful things, which some case laws you are going to find there. Some lawyers are able to post themselves on LinkedIn to say, we just opened a firm. And when you are looking for a correspondent, you have seen that person on that LinkedIn.
Sure.
So that kind of deliberate generation of knowledge dissemination, it's important for me, for young lawyers to be able to go all out to say, this is how we are going to want to be remembered. These are the kind of things we do. This is the kind of work we specialize in. We are not saying we are the best compared to John. We are saying we specialize in it. If you want our specialty, we have it.
Sure.
If you want your job to be done without you worrying, come to us.
Sure.
Because there are many lawyers all over.
Sure.
So we may not be doing that enough, such that we are not educating our members about ensuring that they stay longer in the profession. But all things considered, digitization, just the same way that you can talk about access to internet, depends entirely on who's looking.
Yes.
Look, we have achieved a lot with that partnership. I'll tell you that when I first attended the NBA last year in July,
Sure.
in Las Vegas, I asked them what regulates our relationship, because it can't be about just me flying across the world to come and sit here and listen to you guys talk. What regulates it? And everybody in the room said, we haven't done anything about that part. And I came back and said to the comrades, we must develop an MOU with them.
Sure.
If we value them and they value us just as much as we have always done.
Sure.
And comrades in the NEC were very quick to agree that yes, let's do it. I think it's safe to report to the members of the BLA that this outgoing NEC has been able to sign an MOU with the NBA, and that MOU speaks volumes about legal education. So those partnerships are very important. Two, we must be able to explore how PALU functions. PALU is the Pan-African Lawyers Union.
Sure.
How it functions in Africa and what kind of partnerships does it require to have with individual law firms or regional political organizations, so that both organizations can carry a particular narrative on human rights basis. I know they are very consistent in the East Africa bloc.
Sure.
But I plan to have a conversation that says, how do you bring them down to the South? So those are the things on the horizon that I'm looking at. I think with the first two, Saula, Nadel, and probably any other like-minded organization, advocates for transformation, the GCB and whoever, I think we just have to somewhat disabuse ourselves of the imagination that we are competitors. We are complementing each other in the space. Our purpose is to actually grow the voice of the oppressed majority in South Africa. It's not to compete amongst each other. The reason we don't grow and the reason we don't speak coherently with one voice is because we think we're competing. We always worry about who is saying it. Instead of us imagining, if this one says it this way and I say it this way, the voices about the subject matter grows. We are very quick to actually ask the wrong question, who said it first?
Sure.
And for me, that is not how organizations of like-minded ideas must be able to operate. So I don't have to look at Saul as a competitor.
Sure.
I must always look at Saula as a complementing structure to my programs of the BLA. And that's what we have been doing throughout these 2 years. We woke up to say to AFT, let's work together in the LPC. Let's work together in this space. Let's work together in that space. Through the LSSA, let's do 1, 2, 3, 4. Through BLA, let's do 1, 2, 3, 4. Nadel, can we collaborate on simple things like these ones?
Sure.
During the disaster in the Eastern Cape, we collaborated with Nadel to literally go and hand out food parcels. And it was a great event because all of us understood humanity the same way.
Sure.
And we went there to assist those communities through their challenges,
sure,
as given out by that stormy weather. So I'm saying I look forward to somewhat making sure that those kind of relationships are never competitive.
Sure. Are you then, or would you say then that you encourage cross membership of members of the BLA being members of Saula and Nadel, vice versa?
It's unavoidable for you to not have members that may wear two caps. It's unavoidable in the sense that these organizations are voluntary associations.
Sure.
But I'll also tell you that where I come from, conscious level wise,
sure,
I belong. I would not, because the BLA and Nadel are complementary,
sure,
means I can join both. I literally would be prostituting my time. And I don't think that I want to do that. I believe that it is better when I belong to the BLA and John belongs to Nadel. Then we are two persons belonging to different organizations. And when we are in the room, we are able to just grow our voices, without necessarily us encouraging cross membership. The danger with cross membership, I'll tell you now, is that it can easily throttle growth of these organizations. You may be sitting with similar people belonging to all organizations.
sure.
And when you are in Nadel, you generate a particular narrative, but when you come to the BLA, you generate a different tune. You sing a different tune. So for me, that is dishonesty. For me, that is unreliability, because nobody can trust you when you find yourself with the same principles, but you talking about them differently because you are in different organizations.
Sure.
So I'm better off in one organization and with somebody else in another organization, but with us singing about briefing patterns,
sure,
from different angles. I think what doesn't make sense, it's an imagination that you can run a resilient firm alone.
Sure.
So it would make perfect sense that we must start to educate our people to actually build resilient firms. And resilient firms includes the terms you are using of conglomerating firms and joining each other and all those things, and becoming one big law firm that can be trusted with work. Trusting you with work includes ensuring that we are sitting with the ability that we need from you. When you are running in court, I said earlier, when you are running in court chasing bail, I'm sitting in the office drafting summons. We are both using our 8 hours for the benefit of one entity. Now, unfortunately, the kind of economic system we are sitting with in South Africa, and currently in particular, is such that I don't know, I wish I knew the reason and how, but I've seen that a lot of us can't tolerate working with each other.
What is it? We all want to be the boss?
I don't know. Maybe we are just in a hurry to be to the front. Maybe. But I hope that a lot of young people can actually learn out of the Weber Wenzels of this world and the Webers of this world, that those 100 lawyers sitting in that space are not sitting there because they don't like their names. They're sitting in there because that entity itself is what attracts work on the basis of an imagination of a client, that if I take my work there, there will be capacity to do it.
Sure.
That's as simple as that. So I would encourage a lot of young people to start trusting each other enough to work together, because in that way all of them will grow and they would make better sense and make better income. Because when you are alone, I don't really think that you can make a better income. I still think I surprise myself a little more than I like.
Sure.
We went for an outreach program. Throughout, the BLA has taken a resolution for, I think, for the past 15 to 20 years, if not 10 to 15, that I've known the BLA, that we are going to go to a school in every place where we go to a meeting. We are going to go to a school to go and give an outreach. When we took office, we found that the previous leadership used to buy certain parcels, sometimes sanitary pads and so forth, to go and give to the schools, to the children in those schools, primary schools, sometimes high schools, depending where. When we got in, we said, can we do something more valuable than that? Not that there is no value in the sanitary pads, but can we go to a school and deliberately support children? Because for me, the sanitary pads issue sounded more like worrying more about the girl child and forgetting the boy child. And in order to build a better society, you need both children. So we said, okay, let's go there and support both children almost similarly where possible. We can still add the sanitary pads if the necessity arises, but let's look for a different project. And then we decided to give the school shoes. And when we decided on the school shoes, everybody was like, will they be affordable? I said, we will afford, because we will ask members of the BLA to contribute to that project. We went to Mpumalanga. When we arrived there, we gave out, I think, almost 50 to 80, if not 100 school shoes, 150. We gave to both school boys and school girls, and it was a gesture that parents, teachers, and those children alike appreciated more than we thought. And whilst I was there, I think it was almost at the point of departure when I saw this kid who came and greeted me and with teary eyes said, thank you. And I said, okay, thank you for. He said, I have new school shoes today. because you were here. And I was like, oh, okay. What is your situation like? Then the principal approached and said, this child and the younger sister needs all the help they can get because their father stays with them. They don't know where their mother is. And they have no any other thing to rely on. Sometimes they eat only here at school and they go home to an empty house.
Sure.
And something told me immediately at that time that I can do better by sharing the little I have with them.
Sure.
So since then, me and my family, we have made it an issue to make sure that we go there, attend to them. We keep contact with the father and the children every now and then. But we make sure that every other 2 months we give them money for groceries where possible. Sometimes we would buy groceries and take them there.
Mm-hmm.
We buy them whatever money we leave. Excuse me, the father would update me that he has actually been able to buy this and that those type of clothes for those children. So it's one boy and one girl. The boy just joined high school now. I have it on good authority that he's performing much better, and he does always update me about his performance. The girl child also performs much better, and at least they go home to a hope. And I take that to heart because at least we're able to make a difference in somebody else's life.
Sure.
So we aim to encourage even the incoming leadership to continue with that kind of value-adding propositions of outreach programs. It's not about Nelson Mandela Day.
Sure.
It's about a long-term difference you can actually give to people.
Sure.
Our people are living in abject poverty. For those of us who, in our own little ways, have got extra 1 rand, I would rather we spend it on those people than on something else. Look, I think one of the reasons we took a decision to give school children school shoes was exactly to make a difference that is visible and that can outlive our presence there. We took a conscious decision to say, let us improve on the work that others were doing of giving out sanitary pads and give these children things that they would look at for a longer period and use them for a longer period more than anything. We have seen young children walk to school barefoot. And on a rough calculation, in the 3 past meetings that we have hosted as this NEC and me as president, we have been able to change the lives of no less than 350 children by giving them those school shoes. And they go to school every day today walking with shoes. Some of them were much more luckier because we went to their schools during winter. Then you can imagine what would have been happening to them if they were wearing ragged shoes or no shoes at all to walk to school on gravel roads.
Sure.
So I think this NEC can give itself a pat on the shoulder for having changed the lives of those no less than 300 school children.
Sure.
And it's something that I would encourage that we should actually improve on by giving a little more than that. If it means we should be able to have and adopt a school program type of thing, you do that. In adopting that school, you don't have to adopt them to give them money every time. You can adopt them to go there and assist every now and then about things that they probably do. Some amongst our members may be having different educational qualifications. And I always believed that one of the key deliverables of lawyers in South Africa must be our deliberate intent to educate society about their human rights. And I believe that we can give that as the BLA. As long as it is well coordinated, we can go to schools every other month to go and talk about a simple human rights issue, the right to basic water. A simple thing like that, the right to basic water to communities. We have seen Section 27 do a great job in our communities fighting for against the department's pit latrines. It's not something that we can honestly say we don't see it happen in our communities. How many of us are willing to actually take up that battle? Sure. Without worrying about the NPOs doing anything. Sure. There's nothing in law that says if you see a wrong, you can't go to court to correct it. Sure. So I believe that we can do a little more. Unfortunately, you can only sell ideas to the members of the BLA and hope that they actually are able to take them and run with them. And that for me will be another way of reasserting the organization. Sure. For the purpose for which it was established.
If you were to, I've seen that ever since we started participating in the BLA, there has been more value-add partners that we've attracted. Yeah. In respect of outreach programs. If you were to have a message of invitation to these corporates to come participate, what would that message look like?
Look, I think these partners have assisted us in multiple ways, including some amongst them visibility in the space where we were supposed to carry out those activities. But generally, I think we must be able to dig deeper into our pockets, both in our individual capacities and in our official capacities in those companies, to be able to say our levels of contribution is what we can literally record. Sure. If, for instance, one of the sponsors of the BLA was to say to me, we are willing to donate 50 pairs of shoes to your next program. How do we communicate that in such a manner that it becomes part of our marketing drive in societies? Then we are able to say this partnership, it's beneficial to both. We are both looking out for the interest of these children. But in looking out for the interest of these children, all of us are able to go home with clean consciences that we don't sit with 50 pairs of shoes in our cabinets, and one child who is disadvantaged in a particular village goes to school barefoot. It doesn't take much, to be honest. A pair of shoes is 200 to 300.
Sure.
At most, less than 500 rand.
Mm-hmm.
On a simple arithmetic calculation, 50 pairs at a 500 amount goes to what? 2,500 to or 25,000 rand?
Sure.
How much do you make? How often do you make that kind of money in a year?
Sure.
In different projects where you are privileged to serve.
Sure.
Or to be appointed. So I'm saying we can do much better as society if all of us combined our efforts and made a contribution.
Sure.
It may be that we can go and repair a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Away from Nelson Mandela Day activities.
Sure.
We go there and we put window panes.
What progresses has been made in revitalizing BLA student chapter? How will you strengthen mentorship for students and young practitioners? Or how do you intend to, especially if elected in your next term? Will the NEC provide more funding for BLACs? How will the BLA bridge the academic practice gap? Could we see a national BLA law clinic or fellowship program in your next term? There's been talks of BLA law clinic. And in your response, please comment on the establishment of the BLA house and perhaps its administration and how it can best benefit the BLAC.
Thanks. Look, the BLA student chapter, it's the lifeblood of the actual BLA. It is out of the BLA student chapter that we expect to at least have the second crop of members of the BLA. So it is extremely important to us as members of the BLA now, and to me as the president currently, including hopefully in the future, that the student chapter must be supported, must be guided, must at all times be aligned with the programs of the national body. The difficulty I have observed has been, and it's becoming a recurring feature of the 12 months of leadership of the student chapter that gets to be characterized by infighting, lack of respect probably for each other, and so forth.
Is not something that perhaps the branches, provincial branches, should be teaching this year?
Exactly. And that's the point I want to drive, that we must go back to a scenario in which we run workshops of BLASC in campuses through our branches, where we are able to then take responsibility for the kind of a BLASC member who ultimately becomes a BLA member fully should be able to become.